The core idea behind agile is that there is nothing that must be done. It's all about figuring out what works for you, and then once you figure it out, then you figure out again how you can make it better and better and better. It's about continuously questioning and improving things, not following, oh, this coach came and says, if I do stand up every day, then I'm agile, kind of, I'm Scrum certified. No, that's not the point.
Yeah. Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
How did you like the conference so far? Or
It was
well,
cool.
it was over, but it was
Yeah,
cool.
I liked it. I like the kind of. Lately, I like smaller conferences because it's more opportunity somehow to get in touch with people and have conversations instead of, big company, go there, do that, get
Yeah.
out, type of thing.
Yeah.
They did a good job, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there were some good talks. Did you have a favorite one?
Yeah, the one from Rocco was nice.
What was it about?
It was about how to set objectives using Google system.
Okay, the OKR talk, right?
OKRs, exactly. And the guy from that was talking about technical writing. That was also cool. I usually go to more techie type of talks, but those two ended up being the ones I like the most.
Yeah, I mean, that non-technical track, the number 3, was pretty good, yeah?
It was good. They did a good job. Both this and previous year, I think. Coming next year as well.
Okay. And what was your talk about?
Mine was about continuous delivery, continuous deployment. Kind of oriented it around commandments.
Yeah.
It was good, I think.
I kind of like that you used imagery, like Bible-related imagery.
Yeah,
for
everything
the
is
talk.
Bible related. So I hope that nobody got offended, religious thingy. A lot of questions at the end, so that to me that's a good sign that if you need to stop people from asking questions, that means that they were following, I think.
Yeah. That's,
Or that they were shocked. One of those two things. I'm not sure which one.
yeah, and what I really liked about the talk is that you have gone into a lot of. You actually had like 10 commandments, but it wasn't just about continuous deliveries. For me, it was also about devops and microservices and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I put 10 continuous delivery simply because I think you need to have some kind of a framework, but
Yep.
most of the things that I was trying to propose are not really directly related to continuous delivery. Kind of. You should do TDD no matter whether you do continuous delivery or not, and things like that. No? Small teams, microservices, stuff like that.
Yeah,
More
I
of
mean,
a subject than anything special.
yeah, at least if you want to make sure that the stuff you do actually gets deployed and you have like no serious bugs in production, then like most of those things are. And even if you just want to make sure that you are building the right stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's about removing the safety net and not trusting people to do something reactively, but guys, everybody needs to jump into automation and different processes and architecture.
Yeah, but I also heard that you are currently writing a book, or just about finishing it, right?
Yeah, I'm finishing a book always. Yeah, it's a fourth one. I mean, the way how I write is kind of special because I think that not many people do that. I publish a book when I have first 2 chapters.
Okay.
And then I give it to people, and then they start giving me feedback. I don't even have a clear scope, but kind of, hey, look, I wrote those 2 chapters. What would you like to see next? What did I mess up? And things like that. It's kind of agile approach almost to book writing. right?
It's even lean, right?
Yeah, imagine that each chapter is a sprint, and at the end of it, you gather with your team and decide what are we going to do next. Just that in this case, team are readers, not developers.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they are developers at the same time, but that's not their function.
And what is the core topic of your ebook?
It's how to eliminate humans. How to make a system that can operate without human intervention. How it can scale up, scale down, services, infrastructure, using metrics, alerts, Jenkins, stuff like that. How to automate as much as possible. No? But everybody is kind of still trying to jump into continuous integration delivery train, and I think that with the book I'm going further, trying to automate everything that comes after that.
So you work at CloudBees, right?
Yep.
And CloudBees is behind Jenkins.
Yeah, we are a company behind Jenkins.
And
We don't own Jenkins. Jenkins is open source, but we are the major contributor, and then
contributor.
there is
Okay.
enterprise version on top and stuff like that.
Okay, and so what do you think? How should people relate to Jenkins? When they use what are the most important rules about using Jenkins well?
Yeah.
How to avoid misusing it?
Yeah, avoid using everything that you knew about Jenkins 5 years ago.
And what are those things?
I mean, freestyle jobs, a lot of UI-based operations, everything centralized in Jenkins, and we go now in a completely opposite direction. Everything defined as code, everything decentralized in your repositories, not in Jenkins. Branches that are created automatically and things like that. It's very much code-oriented these days. No UI.
Yeah, because a lot of people were using Jenkins with UI, and then that kind of has its drawbacks. Whenever you want to open up a new project, you have to do everything by hand, right?
Yeah, because kind of with UI you have that feeling that you can automate stuff without knowing much about stuff. Kind of somebody from this team needs to run some Maven something, and then I can I don't even have to know about Maven. I can just install the plugin and click, and I have something working, right?
Yeah.
But that always backfires. Ultimately you need to learn what you want to do, and then eventually automate it without Jenkins. No, kind of what are the commands that I want to execute, and then you go to Jenkins and just copy and paste them. Kind of.
Or maybe even don't just copy paste, but in the Jenkins you just code a script that does whatever you wanted to automate, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean it must be a healthy combination of there is a scripting in Jenkins, but still you shouldn't use it as a coding platform, I think. But I do suggest people always to do their automation independently of any tool. Do your scripts, do your whatever you need, and then you jump into tool and then wrap it around. No?
Yeah, and that also has the core advantage that whatever you want to, so you can run everything on your own computer, right?
Yeah.
So locally. Because if you don't do that, then you end up with a build pipeline that only runs in production.
Yeah, exactly.
Or on the CI server, I mean, and not on your machine.
Exactly. I mean, your delivery pipeline should be a reflection of what you do without any tool, no? Not something that you just wait for Jenkins to do it, you commit something and say, oh, let's see whether Jenkins will tell me whether it compiles.
Yeah.
You should check it yourself first. Respect your coworkers, I guess.
Especially if you follow one of the commandments that you said yesterday, to always commit into master.
Always commit to master, exactly. I mean, you can have branches, but master is what really matters, because that's what you're deploying to production. Everything else is just a side track of that.
Actually, I'm even more dogmatic about that. When I usually say that branches are the only case in which a branch is okay is if you messed up and couldn't commit something within an hour and you have to hand it over to someone else.
Yeah.
But normally, I personally think that you should always be able to commit every half an hour into master. And that's what I call continuous integration, right? And anything else is, as you said, delayed integration.
Exactly. Just that unfortunately, kind of the idea of branches and branching strategies are still so ingrained in people's brains. Kind of, it's almost, there is no room even to consider alternative. Kind of, no, we use branches all our lives. We need to have branches. We need to have integration branch and this branch and that branch, and I don't know, it's a bit sad, but
Yeah.
to me, if you feel that you cannot use directly master branch, that means that you don't trust your process.
Yeah, and or it means that you are not you're not developing iteratively, right? So if you are in a situation that after half an hour you cannot commit anything, that actually means that you have cannot commit anything without breaking something that already worked.
Yep.
That means that you haven't paid attention to making sure that you don't break things along the way, right? So refactoring that breaks things along the way is not refactoring. It's taking things apart.
Rolling around.
Yeah.
That's not refactoring, definitely.
Yeah. So when you actually want to do refactoring, you want to make sure that every single step, like, I normally don't break anything for more than a few seconds.
Yeah,
Even when I do refactoring.
That's the idea behind TDD. Kind of.
Yeah.
Very, very short iterations. If it breaks, fix it. And if you cannot fix it in a few minutes, then revert.
Yeah, that's another good advice. Actually, there is this code retreat practice of baby steps. You know that one?
Yep.
Where you actually have to either commit within 90 seconds or revert. And I think
exactly.
For every time I give that exercise to people on code retreats, they are completely out of their minds. How can you do that? It's impossible. And then it turns out it's possible.
It is. Just that I think that one of the problems is that TDD requires certain practice, certain architectural style, and so on and so forth. And it's very hard to get there, I think. Kind of, people try TDD and then after a few days say, oh, this is not productive, I'm not productive. No, because a few days is not...
It's not enough to get into the practice, right?
Yeah, I think you need months until you're actually really proficient with TDD.
Yeah.
Kind of, when
agree
you're
with
actually
that,
more productive than before.
Yeah, and actually when Uncle Bob talks about TDD, right, he always says that this sounds like unnatural when you first hear about it. And I just think that's actually more natural to do TDD, because the way I learned programming was by just fooling around, changing a bit of code and then testing it out manually, then changing a bit of code, testing it out manually. I had this like really short and tight feedback loop, and that's what I lost as the application grew. And basically TDD just gives you back that power of having these so short iterations.
No, it would be very natural if we didn't redefine what natural is, because natural is what you're used to, right, in a way.
Yeah.
And if you're used to some completely different approach, then it's logical, it feels unnatural, right?
Yeah, I mean,
you spent 15 years doing it in a completely opposite way, and then after 15 years it feels unnatural.
Yeah, and I think that universities, at least university professors, have a great deal of responsibility there, because many are still teaching coding, like writing on the whiteboard, and, just writing a lot of code up front without any test, and that's what they teach people. And when you learn that kind of bad practice for 3 years at university, it's really hard to get out of that practice. So one of the things that I would definitely want to see change in university education is the way they teach programming, like this upfront writing code instead of learning by TDD.
And I think that before that change, we would need to have a change that actually there are no full-time professors.
Oh, I agree with that.
Because
Fully.
if it's full-time professor, then it becomes like a typical enterprise type of systems architect that stopped coding when he became architect. No, same thing for professors. I think you need to be engaged in a real-world projects, and then part of your time dedicated to translate that knowledge to people, right? But if all you do is only teach, then how can you be up to date? And I mean, unless you don't sleep at night, and then after your work you're exploring those things.
Yeah.
But even then, it's not the real world. You need to be engaged in real project in order to learn things.
Yeah, I
before
absolutely
you
agree.
teach.
I think a teacher who hasn't been in the industry for more than a year completely loses their credibility, right? Because
Exactly.
this is such a fast-moving industry that you just can't go and spend years away from coding and still be up to date. It's impossible.
Look at it this way: many people work in companies, and after a year or a couple of years, they get detached from what they're doing because they're just kind of doing the same.
Yeah.
Now imagine if you're not doing even that. It's,
Yeah,
you need to have that healthy combination of, real work and then time to experiment, and then time to translate that knowledge to others. No?
Yeah.
If any of those three is missing, then you're not doing it well, I think. And unfortunately, many companies, especially consulting companies, there is never time to explore. No, kind of. It's always a deadline. We need to finish this. We need to deliver. No, kind of. We are underfunded. Things like that.
Yeah, and even as I was so in the last few months, I've been leading a team that was onboarding people to the company, and we were working on an actual project, right?
Okay.
But the core idea was that I should teach people how to work the way we work at Masters, which is like pretty much ahead of the curve. We do XP and continuous deployment and all of the things that people talk about at conferences. We actually do it. And we always do it from first principles. We don't just blindly follow these practices. But the thing is that since I had to teach, and that was my primary goal, to teach these things and not to finish the project, I kind of, after 9 months, I felt like I'm getting detached from the rest of the company. So I actually asked to be moved to a team and then replaced by another bootcamp lead. And I think that other bootcamp lead will have to rotate out of the team as well.
Yeah,
afterwards. Yeah, so you just have to switch the lead every few months or at least once a year to make sure that the coach is not getting detached from the rest of the company.
But that works only if you don't formulate those positions as being kind of step up, right? Because once you formulate it as being step up, if I become a tech lead, then I'm actually growing within my company, and then I need to go only up from there, no, never kind of down.
Yeah, that's also an issue. I think that we have this. I mean, status is one of the primary motivators, right? And if you think about it, even if you say that like being a team lead is not stepping up, even if you communicate that within your company, people will still think of it as a form of getting a status. And then it's really hard to say, okay, go back to coding for a few months and then you can be a team lead again. But because people are not like that, they see it as status.
But it doesn't also have to be binary, kind of. It can be part of your time, do whatever code team leading is, and then part of your time be one of them, or something like that.
Actually, in a Masters, most of the team leads work as developers about half of their time. Yeah,
exactly.
It's absolutely what's going on, right?
I do think that you should never get detached from coding, no matter which position you have. But that does not mean that necessarily you need to code 8 hours every day. I don't code 8 hours every day. As long as there is a healthy level of coding, then you're fine, I think.
Yeah. If someone wants to move to continuous deployment or even DevOps or something like that, something that you value in this area, what do you think? What should be the first steps as a company?
I guess it would be about understanding first what going there means, and once you understand what it means, then you need to figure out which steps or which things you need to adopt, and then forget about the initial subject, because kind of if you start immediately kind of I want to do continuous deployment, there are so many different things that you need to do before you get there that you will feel kind of that you're never going to get there, right?
Okay.
So if you say, okay, for continuous deployment you need to do to refactor your code and adopt TDD and this and that, right? They say, okay, and now we forget about and let's focus on TDD, for example, right? And then when kind of separate it into small sprints, not necessarily small, but kind of smaller objectives, no? And when you finish each of them, then you say, okay, I did one, I need 27 more, no? Kind of let's move to another one.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's overwhelming, kind of you feel that you're failing continuously to get there. Right?
So instead of continuous deployment, you end up with continuous failing.
Exactly. And that's what's happening in quite a few cases I'm seeing. Kind of it is hard. It is hard if you did not even start. No? So many companies do a lot of things that are missing few of the pieces, and then it's not that hard. But if you're just ingrained into having a separate testing department, having a monolithic architecture, not having your code designed to be testable and things like that, it's not something you can accomplish in like 2 months.
Yeah.
And it's also, and another thing is that organizations have a tendency to organize everything as a project, like it has a beginning and the end.
Okay.
And it's never like that. It's kind of, there is no end, there is no, oh, now I'm this and that compliant, no, and now I'm finished, no, and I can go back to status quo, not improving.
And actually, it's interesting that you use this word compliant, because companies want to be compliant, and that's absolutely not the way you get to DevOps or continuous deployment, because these are more like cultural things. You can't have a recipe for that. You have to have people who understand the core principles. That's why I always say that just wanting to do continuous deployment, and even DevOps is even more like that. That if you say you do DevOps and don't understand, or if you say agile and you don't understand the core principles or the core idea behind why you are doing continuous deployment the way we do continuous deployment, or agile, why do you do stand-ups and sprints and all that stuff, then you're going to fail. Because agile is not just about standing up every morning and talking for 10 minutes. It's a lot more than that.
It's agile is about kind of being lean and questioning everything and improving continuously. That's why I must say that I'm not really fond, for example, of Scrum. I do think that on paper Scrum is great, but then the way how it's implemented, somehow most of the Scrum teams I know, they kind of, oh, you must follow those and those rules. If you don't follow those rules, then you're not Scrum. Kind of like it's too prescriptive. This must be done. And I think that's kind of the core idea behind Agile, is that there is nothing that must be done. It's all about figuring out what works for you, and then once you figure it out, then you figure out again how you can make it better and better and better. It's about continuously questioning and improving things, not following, oh, this coach came and says, if I do stand up every day, then I'm agile, kind of, I'm Scrum certified. That's not the point.
Actually, that's why I also don't really like Scrum, for the very same reason, because it's prescriptive and doesn't concentrate on the core values enough. Actually, that's the reason why we do extreme programming at the Mars, because that actually is built up from first principles.
Exactly. I think that the problem is that many of the hypes get converted into big business, and then that big business passes it up. And then Scrum coaching is a business.
Yeah, it is.
And then people who often don't even have real world experience come and tell you to do this and that, and you're certified.
Yeah.
Once you're certified, then you can do it. Kind of. Okay. Thank you for driving me.
Hey.
Yeah. See you in Kraft, if not before.
If not before. See you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you for watching this episode. I hope it earned your subscription. But while you're here, let me show you something. The people behind me are playing a game called Lean Poker. It's a fun and exciting way to learn how you can deliver value much faster than you have ever imagined. It's exciting. The link is in the description. Check it out if you want to support this channel.